I was involved with a company in Korea called Telemovie. And what
Right.
Telemovie was is what Netflix is today.
Okay.
So, they developed this company and the software to do streaming for big movies, right? So the way they worked, because bandwidth, was the expensive part, right? Which is the problem YouTube had at the time.
Hmm.
Bandwidth was too expensive. So what these guys created was a grid system.
You were handling distribution, creating distribution networks in Korea by getting films into theaters that they might not have otherwise been able to capture up until then, and then you moved into um, producing. And I've seen kind of from our conversations two sides of that, where you have like a visual effects contract with a company, or maybe they're tenuous about it, but
Yeah.
yeah, I think one of the things you shared with me one time was that there was a production where they liked your work, but they didn't know if they had the money. And you kind of said, look, if you bring us on to do the work, we can help you find the extra bit of money that'll kind of complete funding so you get the visual effects package you want. So that's kind of back end stuff. And then also the front end. So with all these variations, is there something you are finding is getting the best traction now in terms of front end producing, back end producing, kind of, grow it yourself stuff? What are you finding is working best?
Let me check my crystal ball. I'll tell you. No, I mean, you know what? It's interesting because I think every deal is different, right?
Right.
It's kind of interesting where you get a project and it gets made within 4 months, and
Mhm.
then you get one project and it'll take you years to develop. Like you said, a lot of it is timing,
Yeah.
a lot of it is luck, but at the end of the day, it is hard work. You got to knock on a lot of doors. Like, I used to go to all the markets. You go to Cannes, you go to MIFED, you go to London, Berlin. You got to go everywhere and meet people and knock on doors. And for us, trying to buy our first movie. I mean, one of the first ones we bought was Total Recall,
Hmm.
and trying to get in the door for that particular company for 6 months, they would never return our call. Never.
And was that the first Total Recall or the remake?
The first one with Arnold,
First one.
yeah.
Okay.
Again, not to mention any names, the particular person that was representing Asia at the time wouldn't take the time of day to call us because we're nobody, you know.
Mhm.
And basically, we flew to LA, waited at the office, and everybody that walked out of the door, we asked him, "Are you so and so? Are you so and so?"
Mhm.
Until the person came out, and he goes, "Who are you, and what do you want?" Says, "We're going to make you a lot of money." He
Mhm.
goes, "You got my attention. Let's go to lunch." And to be honest, that was a big relationship for me because we ended up buying pretty much all their library at the time. And they were one of the biggest independents, Caraco. Um, and we're still good friends today. He's one of my best friends in the industry, you know.
Right. Yeah.
So it took a lot of hard work, and I'm not taking all the credit myself. It was basically somebody else I worked with, and he was very, very smart. So I
Mhm.
learned a lot from him. But I kind of took that and again followed more on what I shouldn't do than what he does,
Right.
because there's a lot of mistakes that he burned a lot of bridges. He got deals done, but I kind of didn't want that. you know I
Mhm.
don't I don't want to step over people just to get a deal done.
Yeah.
I've turned work down before with people like that, so I can sleep better at night.
Right.
you know
Yeah. And now, as all of these, and it is a relationship business, but I imagine one of the evolving elements of those relationships is kind of keeping a pace of all the changes that are happening too, because one partner may work great in sort of, for lack of a better way of putting it, the old era of filmmaking, but then now we've got all kinds of things happening online. I mean, even people are generating stuff with AI now that is getting kind of scary for some and amazing for others. Are there any particular solutions that you're kind of gravitating toward now with all that happening?
Well, I think you got to change with the times. When before when we were doing video titles,
Hmm.
like I said, you know what? They'll send us 100 cassettes. We put them in. You watch 5 minutes, you fast forward, and it'll take you hours to watch something. You
Yeah.
know, um, that scared us when the DVD came in.
Yeah.
What happens to the video titles, right?
Yeah.
And at the time when DVD came in, I brought some executives from Playboy to Korea, and I showed them how the streaming business works in Korea, and they thought this will never work. This thing will never work. I took them to. They used to have these buildings like the size of a movie theater, and they're full of desks and screens, and people will stream movies and play games all night,
Mm.
right? Because they didn't, like when you're talking certain Asian countries, you don't have the room at home. So they would go to a separate place and stream videos and so on. And Playboy said, no, this will never work. So
Mm.
then back in, I believe, 2003, 2004, I was involved with a company in Korea called Telemovie. And what
Okay.
Telemovie is what Netflix is today.
Okay.
So they developed this company and the software to do streaming for big movies, right? So the way they worked, because bandwidth, was the expensive part, right? Which is the problem YouTube had at the time.
Mm.
Bandwidth was too expensive. So what these guys created was a grid system. So what it was computing with computers that are basically sleeping at night. So whether it's libraries, universities, so you use their computing power to do the bandwidth, right? So it
Right.
was cheap, but it was good. And we went to San Jose. We were trying to raise money for it, and I spoke to a lot of distributors, and everybody's like, no, no streaming, no, you're gonna pirate the movies and so on. So we had a hard time, and then basically a couple of years later, Netflix came along,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
look at it now, right?
Yeah. And I
But
remember thinking myself when it was still big with Blockbuster
yeah,
and Netflix was kind of just doing their mail out DVDs.
yeah,
And I thought these guys are going to go broke because I could see how people were treating a lot of the DVDs just from the video stores. And I thought mailing people movies and then sending them back. I mean, are they crazy? And then, but when the streaming hit with those guys, I had a feeling that was going to change everything. And sure enough, it has.
well, I mean, the beauty of it was binge watching.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's what changed everything, right? It wasn't, you have to wait for a show, and then you have to wait for the next episode. No, you can spend the weekend and watch a whole season,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then you go to work tired in the morning because this is what you did in the weekend. So I think that changed everything, you know. So there's always change,
Hmm.
right?
And
And
Blockbuster really missed it on that. It just because even before Netflix introduced the binge watching of shows, I don't know what it was, but something happened, and I bring up Blockbuster because it's such a
so,
tra
yeah,
they really missed the situation there because I think it was just at the end of Blockbuster. I started going over to Blockbuster with my family. I'd pick up Deadwood, right? There were a couple, and there was another one with Clancy Brown in it, Carnival, that I started watching, and I thought these are high quality, like at the time, like HBO level kind of produced shows that are like watching a movie, and I was like looking for those everywhere, but I think they came in with that too late because Netflix was probably already picking up that idea because then Breaking Bad came out and things like that on streaming and but yeah, that was it's amazing how close to a big idea someone can be and still miss it because and it who the new guy is on the block that really takes off with it. It's an interesting
yeah.
transition. Yeah.
I mean, the reality is, I think people miss the fact that you go to a store, you look at the shelves, and you pick your movies or have your kids pick the movies, right? I think that still would work personally.
Hmm.
It's kind of like, do you do all your shopping through Amazon or do you actually go to a store,
Right.
right? It's there's no difference there. It's killing a lot of stores, But I still think, if you're gonna go Christmas shopping, you go Toys R Us and you pick your toy. There's nothing that beats that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Redbox is still available. Walmart still has their DVDs. There's still a business. People still collect DVDs. Like my brother would never stream anything. He buys them, and I keep telling him why, but he buys them. He likes to collect them. If he likes a show, he'll buy it, right?
Yeah.
So I still believe in that. I mean, you can go online and you can pay 24.99 to watch something and you download it. And where does it go?
Hmm. Hmm.
If you want to watch it again, or you buy a new TV, or you crash, or where do you go?
Yeah.
You pay for nothing, right? Like it's not, some people like to have something tangible,
Yeah.
you know, other people like the digital world, but I still think there's a market.
Yeah,
So
but it comes up a lot in conversation and it's not just about the tangibility of the product. It's kind of like what you alluded to. It's the experience. Like
yeah,
like even going on dates. I mean, I remember, being, in my early 20s and in late teens, and you go on a date and you didn't have to, make it into a major like going out for dinner event. Sometimes you go to the video store, you'd talk, you'd spend 20 minutes in there eating popcorn, cracking jokes about some of the films that you weren't going to get and ones that you might. And
yeah,
there was a whole community that would kind of be in experience that would be involved in that. And now everything's sort of watch it for 5 seconds, change your mind, and flip to the next thing, and turn off the TV, forget about it. But there's everything's so punctuated that you don't get that kind of experience, and you don't invest in films the same way because when you spend an hour looking for a movie and you find the one you think you want, and you get home, even if it's not great, you're probably going to watch a little more of it to give it a chance because you put so
yeah,
much work into going to get it, right? And
exactly.
yeah, I agree. I'm sure if someone can come up with an idea that could not forget about modern technology, but somehow use that experience to kind of enhance a product or service, they'd probably have something.
Oh, I think the whole experience is something kids are missing, right?
Hmm.
It's like I said, you go in, you look at the shelves. Obviously, they're gonna go with what they like as far as is the cover, right?
Yeah.
And then you can ask the guy. You watch a trailer. You can watch the trailer, and then you go pick up some popcorn, and you can't wait to go home and do the popcorn and sit on the couch. And once you put that tape in, you just sit there and wait. Like, wow,
Yeah.
I don't think it's like going to the theater, right? Like
Hmm.
you're not gonna beat that experience. You can have the best home system, doesn't matter, but it's still not that I am going to drive to the theater
Hmm. Hmm.
experience. And the popcorn will never taste the same.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You got to work for it a little bit. I think
Yeah,
that was part of the experience. Even
yeah.
going to the movie theater, same thing, fighting the crowd, standing in line, getting
Exactly.
corralled into the ticket booth where everyone's kind of crushing you, especially if you're like 10 years old and you can't see above the
Oh,
curtain yet. But all of that was part of,
yeah.
the movie experience.
Christmas, I think Christmas Day, the opening of Godfather 2 or 3, 3, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Waiting at the theater outside on Eglinton and Avenue Road, freezing your ass off,
Yeah.
you know, but you can't wait to get in, get to that so you can buy your tickets, right?
That's right. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, you don't have that anymore,
No. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and kids, I mean, my son, he still goes to the theater, even my daughter, not as much as they used to, but they still do.
Hmm.
Sometimes I go, what are you gonna watch? I go, oh, we'll find something. They
Hmm.
just want that experience
Yeah.
because it's not there anymore.
Yeah.
So I think as much as things change, it's kind of like the car industry, right? They came in, they brought all these robots, and everybody's always going to take work away from people, which is true.
Yeah.
But then you have to adapt, right? You go to a grocery store, it's self checkout. I try not to self checkout because then the cashiers don't have a job. But it's going in that route. You have to change, right? You either adapt or you get out.
Yeah.
You can't sit there and complain and go, "Oh, what do I do now?"
Yeah.
Figure it out.